This is a Super Smash Bros. Melee technique called wobbling, and it took nearly 20 years to ban. I promise this is about Overwatch, just give me a second here, okay? This is a relatively easy tech where the ice climbers get a grab and then desync from each other, pummeling the opponent infinitely. And the catch is all they have to do is hit one button at the correct rhythm once they set it up to keep it going. Oh, and did I mention that it always leads into a kill? Melee is a very technically skillful game, and it has one of the most unified communities I have ever seen with how they typically enjoy playing the game. Yet it still took 20 years to get rid of wobbling, freeze, and then unfreeze Pokemon Stadium and add a ledge grab limit. Why? Because they aren't actually a part of the game. There's an old quote from Chris DeLeon that goes, "Sports and board games have rules, video games have laws." The gist of this means that in sports, you must agree to the rules, and the breaking of said rules is a violation of the game, and that comes with penalties. Yet a video game has all of the interactions and rules coded in, so if the game does or doesn't allow you to perform it, that's what dictates the outcome. In American football, I can't use the strategy of taking my cleat off and smashing it into someone's face because the rules say otherwise, and I'd be arrested. But in Madden, I can't take my cleat off to smash it into somebody's face because there is no coded button or interaction that would allow it. Get on it, John. I'm trying to play your game. Let me play your game. Now, this dichotomy and the two parts intersections have been talked about to death in the esports space. Both the rules and the laws exist simultaneously, and trying to determine when rules need to be put in place can be a particularly tough challenge for games. Part of the reason it took so long to make changes to Melee is that the game has been around for so long, and changing the rules not only changes how you play and practice, it can also straight up eliminate ways to play the game that some people might really enjoy. Is it fair to the Jigglypuff players of 2 decades that the ledge grab limit disproportionately affects them? Does it set a bad precedent to be able to squash new strategies that challenge how the game is played? Should there even be any rules to begin with, and should we just let the game systems decide what counts as a win or a loss? I hope to answer these questions and more while trying to determine if and how hero bans could be implemented into Overwatch. Yes, I know it's a bit of a 180, but this is an Overwatch video. Before we start theory crafting hero bans, let's start with some of the most important issues first, those relating to playing the game in a certain way. Overwatch is no stranger to sweeping format changes like hero limits, role lock, and 5v5, but hero bans are a different beast. See, no matter what, format changes have never eliminated a playstyle for an individual. If you want to play only Mercy every game, you can do that. In fact, role lock makes it even easier in some regards. If you like to swap around based on what the enemy is playing, you can do that. Sure, it may be a little more limited nowadays, but being flexible will always be rewarded. And of course, if you always want to play hard meta, nothing is stopping you. Hero bans throw a wrench into all of these playstyles. If your one hero gets banned, you're forced to play something you don't want to. If the hero or heroes you flex to get banned, you're stuck playing one thing. If the meta picks get banned, you have to figure out on the fly what to play and how to play around what you're facing. Flexibility and adaptability have always been important skills in Overwatch, but should they be some of, if not the most important? It's a shift to a less stable game experience, as there is a bit of uncertainty going into every game. It's a tough call to make because no matter what, there will always be disagreement. Some people are going to be very excited for a hero ban system, and some are going to hate that idea. And regardless of their actual stance about whether they think it's healthy or not, more than likely, some people will benefit and ranked long term because of it, and many others will suffer. Are there voices and opinions that prioritize their own self-interest over the greater game and community? The strategy and gameplay flow will change regardless of how they're implemented, and at some point I think there comes a time where the developers need to make a call about what they think is best for the game, because they will never please anybody. Are they willing to let some of the one tricks go for the greater cause, or is it not fair to those players? It's a tricky situation, and I will propose a couple of solutions later in the video to see if we can find a middle ground here. While we're on the topic of developers, one of the more complicated aspects of this has to do with the devs themselves changing the game. Remember back to the rules versus laws thing? Well, inherently, rules are malleable. Speaking in Melee terms, different tournaments can run different rules, rules can be reversed, rules can even be bypassed sometimes if both parties agree. In the case of Smash, these rules come from the community. It's a collection of a small group of tight-knit, mostly like-minded players who determine how matches are going to be played. It has much more of a town square feel. And if you don't like the rules or don't want to play with them at all, nothing is stopping you from ignoring them, or hell, even making up your own rules when you play alone. Yet of course, online games with matchmaking can't really work this way. They need to be standardized, at least in competitive, and any deviation of the formula splits the queues and the player base, which is its own can of worms. But what I think is the biggest hurdle is that the game is going to change. The devs make an active choice to change how you can play the game forever. For actual matchmaking, actual ranked, there is no way to go back to the old systems without the devs making the call to revert it. The fact that these decisions have to be made by non-community members and are permanent for everyone will always bring with it bad blood for some people. The active player base of Overwatch is much bigger and wider than that of a fighting game community who attends in-person tournaments. Adding hero bans may sound rational and on topic for some people, but many others, even a majority of players, would see this as a left field change and wonder why they would ever do such a thing. We're still dealing with the 5v5 and 6v6 fallout, and I cannot imagine what another formula change would do to the larger Overwatch community. So an implementation of hero bans would, in my opinion, need to be limited in some way. Maybe not in every mode, maybe not in every game. Again, we'll talk about that a little later. Finally, it's no secret that when you play professionally, competitive games are different. Not only are there certain strategies you aren't allowed to perform, Florida Mayhem, there are also different formats you must follow. Best of series, map pools, and pause restrictions are all ways that attempt to make the experience more competitive. Eliminating as much randomness as possible helps ensure the better team wins most of the time. Overwatch doesn't work like this on ladder. You can sit in Doomfist stall spots as long as you want because who's gonna stop you? There's no referee in an online match. But to say that online games can't or even don't have rules to follow isn't exactly true. Just like in actual sports, there are punishments for saying rude things to other players. Online games often have punishments for leaving games early as well. When you sign up for the game, you accept the code of conduct, and there can be violations if you don't follow it. When you load into a match, you make an agreement to play the game and follow the rules. Going AFK, or in some cases goofing around, is breaking that unspoken contract between the players of the match to play to the best of your abilities. Of course, all of these are auto-moderated or reported problems. Both are solutions that don't come with the same accuracy and turnaround time of an officiated match. Also, they are inherently limited in their scope. If there was a rule in Overwatch that someone can't use stall spots, how would you catch someone without manually going through the VODs after they've probably already done it in a dozen matches? It isn't a practical solution for a game like this. Now that isn't inherently about hero bans, but the ultimate point here is that if they were added, they would need to be automated, and that can introduce some problems. Marvel Rivals is already demonstrating two potential problems with a ban system natively. Firstly, you can see everyone in the lobby's names, so you can target bans against certain people if you're familiar with them. This is actually an interesting strategy in organized play because you can only ban a hero once per series, so making sure you maximize the ban to shut down the right player, maybe a specialist, is a good play. Of course, since it's only banned on one map, they're still allowed to play it later so you don't ruin their experience for the entire series. But in a single ladder match, this absolutely shouldn't be the solution. Being able to cripple someone on the other team is exceptionally valuable in what's effectively a best of one series. Ideally, bans in rank should be more for variety and eliminating unfun characters to fight, more so than for actual strategy, since you probably don't know anyone's characters or playstyles. You don't want people abusing the bans to target players and make their lives miserable. Rival's second ban problem is that it only applies to Diamond Plus. Gaining the player base of a feature everyone may enjoy is, for the lack of a better word, elitist. There is no reason why lower ranked players may not enjoy a ban system. There are metas at those ranks, and there are characters people don't like. Just because you don't find value in a Sombra ban doesn't mean that's true for everyone. And sometimes it's more fun to ban the annoying characters over the strong ones. I would ban Widow over Sojourn any day of the week. Fighting Soj is infinitely more fun in her most broken states than getting held hostage in a Widow lobby. So taking these main concerns and questions into account, how should we actually structure a ban system? Well, let's start with the big question. Should we even have bans? My solution is yes, if you want them. You are never going to get everyone to agree with the format, so why can't we let everyone have a little more agency over it? When you load into a match, quick play or comp, all ranks welcome, it starts with a vote. Not of who you want to ban, but if you want to have a ban phase in the first place. For this decision, I think it should be the majority rule. In case of a tie, I think it has to be random. This way you can't have a 5-stack always determine the format if there was a default option. Adding a vote is a best of both worlds solution, where some games will be played with hero bans and some games won't, so you don't completely eliminate those old playstyles while still introducing the new system. After that, you have to determine who bans what. League has blind bans, 1 per person, but there are also nearly 200 characters in that game. Also, staying in one lane all game means that not banning counters to your character might make your life a living hell, so giving everyone an individual ban makes sense. For Overwatch, you are allowed to swap freely, and you don't have the same type of counterpart to worry about all game, so that system doesn't make sense. And it has a fraction of the characters too. Allowing any role to ban any character focuses more on improving the experience for everyone, not just you in particular. Everyone benefits from a Widow ban. Now, most ban systems work by being able to see the other team's bans at the same time yours are revealed, but I have a different solution here. Instead of having bans team-based, why not make them match-based? I want to see a ban system surrounding the sentiment of everyone in the lobby. The way I do this is to have everybody in the lobby pick 3 characters they want banned, ranked from highest priority to lowest priority. This all happens after you see the map pick, by the way, so you can curate them to it. With a system like this, you can have the 3 or 4 highest scoring characters get banned based solely on lobby popularity and not based on any extenuating circumstances. A weighted algorithm where you rank them also reduces the amount of ties, and though it could still happen, and in that case, I think it would still have to be random with whoever tied. One of my only concerns here is about a 5-stack fixing the bans for the lobby. That's why I'm leaning on 4 bans for the match to make sure a team can't just pick the same 3 heroes over and over and get all the bans. Also, I think a 2-week lockout period after a hero launch so you can't ban them is probably a good idea. Let's throw that in there as well just so you get some experience with the new characters. Focusing on a lobby system where no one knows what anyone else is banning really just comes down to what do you want to play against on this map. I think this strategy eliminates a lot of bias that comes with trying to win the match and really focuses on how much you're going to enjoy it. At the end of the day, we want to enjoy our experience in the game. It's a way to make sure the most oppressive and annoying factors are suppressed, and it gives the devs another data point to determine which characters are in desperate need of changes. If Mauga gets banned in 60% of games, maybe they're gonna take another look at him, you know what I mean? Putting the player in charge of the presence and choice of the bans gives them a lot more agency over the flow and style they get to play, more so than even the map itself. I think it's an out-of-the-box solution that helps bring so much needed diversity to Overwatch when metas naturally start to stale. The Overwatch devs can't be working 24/7, so a way for us to weather the storm in the meantime while they get to work is a really good solution. I'm hopeful that they will be added soon in some capacity because OWCS has started to roll them out, and I can only imagine that the main game will follow, but I guess we'll have to see. So that's my solution to hero bans, but I'm looking for feedback. What do you think of this, and what are your suggestions? While you're at it, you should hit the subscribe and like buttons. That would be like super cool of you. Oh my god, that's crazy. You shouldn't have. You're so generous. And if you're really cool, come join the stream. That's twitch.tv/LaneHemingway. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. There's always something to talk to me about. I am always live playing Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, or just something random. I don't know. And finally, join my Discord down below to stay up to date with all of my projects. I've got a couple of them in the works, hopefully coming out pretty soon. Okay, thank you guys so much for listening, watching, whatever you do. Have a good day.